Keep Breathing was so riveting. The moment I turned it on, I was like, wow, like it's so fast paced. The cinematography and the locations are so stunning. How did you two work together to come up with this story? And was there an inspiration that started, or what was that like?
Well, we had been doing one of the loudest shows on television, the show called Blindspot, for the past 5 years. And so we don't like to repeat ourselves. So the conversation started as like, well, what is the quietest show we could do, but something that would still be fun to watch, like something that would still have an urgency. And so we came up with this concept of like a serene thriller, something that would have like stakes and urgency, but could also be like weirdly restorative to watch. We're both Canadian, and the world is crazy and has been for many, many years now. And it seems like amplifyingly crazy as the years go on. And so we had always retreated to the Canadian wilderness to kind of like decompress. And so trying to figure out, how do we take the world to the Canadian wilderness with us and allow them to decompress while still telling a riveting story. And that's where the show came from.
Do you have anything to add to that, Brennan? Any initial ideas at all, or anything that came to you when you started?
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't just about quiet. It was also about solitude. Like, it was about emotional solitude. So, again, a lot of drama is rightfully about people interacting with each other and how the conflict of people in opposition to other people. And there's certainly elements of that in the story we tell with our lead character's past. But in the present, it's very much just her with herself. It's her against nature, and it's her battling her own personal demons and the history that she's worked very hard to keep herself from. And so for us, it was telling a story about someone who's forced to sit with themselves and reconcile things that they've been working very hard to avoid.
Well, and what a star. Melissa Barrera is phenomenal in this. She does not need scene partners. I mean, she's amazing on her own, but I mean, she's great with the rest of the cast, of course, but it's amazing those solitude moments, how she runs with them.
Agree. And
Oh no, go ahead.
No, we obviously, when you're casting a role that is this dominant, Melissa is in basically every frame of the show. It's incredibly important who you cast, not just in terms of performance, but also in terms of character, personality, of the human that you're working with. And so you do your due diligence with people, and you try to get your best sense of who they are. And she was immediately likable, personable, charming, all the things that you see every time she speaks. But you never really know how someone's going to be until you're out in the woods in a freezing cold lake with mosquitoes and bugs and freezing cold nights and boiling hot days. You find out who someone really is. And Melissa is exactly who she says she is. She's a self-proclaimed warrior, and she wants to be challenged. She wants to push herself, and she wants to collaborate. She wants to tell the story, but she also wants to bring herself to it. And she did that at every step of the way. It was a phenomenal experience. And you also don't know how someone's going to be in silence. Like, you can see how someone is when they're talking, but also it was such a specific assignment. So much of the show lives on her face in silence as she's thinking through problems, as she's taking in her circumstances. And that was kind of the risk, was seeing how that would hold. And Melissa holds every frame of that show in a way that is just staggering to me.
And to me, one of the amazing things too was the fact that you really do push her. I mean, the underwater sequences alone in the first 2 episodes must have been, I mean, a phenomenal film, but it must have been tough. Can you guys talk at all about how that went? What was it? I assume you guys were there kind of watching.
Brendan was there.
Went.
Yeah, Brendan was there for the entire shoot. Yeah, I think, the concern for us immediately was like the lake that we chose to shoot on when we chose it. And Brendan went to scout it in late May, was frozen when we was still frozen
and covered in snow. Like, I was being promised there was a lake underneath the snow I was looking at.
Yeah. And so that water was freezing, like it was freezing cold water. And so we were trying with all of our, expertise and experience and these incredible teams trying to figure out, like, is there a way that could we make an acrylic pool in the middle of the lake that we could heat up? Do we build a barge on an infinity pool? And none of it was going to work. Like there was no getting around that she was just going to have to be in the freezing water. And so we said, like, hey, you have to do cold water training in your hotel room, which is like basically just taking cold baths and breathing exercises. And after the first day, they were like, hey, Melissa wants to talk to you about the cold water training. And I was worried that she was like, this sucks, I don't want to do this. But it was the inverse, where she was like, hey, I need ice bags because I can't get the bath water cold enough. Like if we're going to do this, let's do this. And that really that was like an early indicator of how she was the whole shoot. She was so over-prepared, so diligent, was such an incredible leader on set about like what she was capable of. And like you said, that underwater sequence, like there's no faking it. Like that's her.
No.
And it's just incredible to watch her. She learned how to scuba dive, for the production, just for safety, but like in those wide shots, the safety divers are not close, and so it's incredible to watch her pull off this it's not only an emotional feat, but like a real physical feat.
You don't even get to see truly how impressive it is, because the part of the shot that you show is her swimming out of the sunken fuselage up to the surface, which feels like an endless shot, right? It's longer than anyone should be underwater. She's swimming right towards camera and past it. What you don't see on the show is her getting swum down there by a diver, having to get into place, hide behind the door, wait for the director to yell action, and then do this impossible journey back up. So it's like twice as long as even we show. And it's just, I couldn't believe her willingness to do it again and again and again.
That's amazing. It's one of those moments where behind the scenes stuff would be fascinating to see for sure.
Yeah.
So
she'd want to do it again. She'd be like, I wasn't happy with that. I want to go again. And we'd be like, we have it. It's so crazy what you just did. And we're so happy that everyone's still okay. And she's like, nope, not good enough.
Well, that's the thing. Cause like, not only do you have to do these things, but then you have to act, right? Like there still is a performance involved. It's not just about like, like it's like you have to also emote and perform. And especially that in the sequence in the second episode where she's like stuck and remembering her father, and like it's like almost dying in another occasion. This is all stuff that's playing on her faith while she's underwater. We can't say enough about her.
That's fantastic. That's what you want to hear. And I mean, it shows. I mean, the show, I feel like shows you can feel whether it's working or not, and it so works with her. I'm also curious, for you two working together on this series, how did you work on it together? Did you have pieces that one of you, kind of focused on while the other did something else? Or did you do everything together? Or what's that process like?
We came up with the story. Martin had the idea for essentially a person alone in the woods, kind of wanting like propose that as kind of our next story area. And we talked about the story points of the show together. We figured those out together. Martin wrote the first draft of the pilot, and then I did my thing to it afterwards. And then I wrote the 4 of the other ones. But our process is very fluid. So by the time you get to the end, it's hard to remember exactly who did what when. We've worked together so long now. We have such a shorthand that it's very easy to lose sight of. We just sort of feel like a two-headed animal in some ways.
Yeah, it used to be like the Venn diagram of like what we were both good at used to be like pretty slim. Like that's why we made such good partners, was like, I'm great at this, you're great at that. Like together we make, but like over the course of like 15 years of collaborating, the who's responsible for what has gotten very is constantly evolving, and how we work constantly changes, as well. So both in the writing and the producing, and then for this show especially, like the show was really predominantly made in the editing room, because we had not made a show with this little dialogue, that was so visual. And so really finding what worked and what didn't, that what we thought would work and didn't, or what we thought wouldn't work and did, and just like constantly reshaping and building this thing. But yeah, I mean, we're very collaborative.
And one of my favorite things, I hope Martin agrees, maybe he doesn't, but one of the things I love most about working with Martin is I think we like arguing with each other with love, like we really love disagreeing with each other when we believe in what we're saying, but I certainly never feel personal about it. And you can usually figure out pretty quickly who feels more strongly about something. And often that's the person that will win the argument, is the person who cares more about that particular point. And I think we're very good with the ebb and flow of where that passion lies. And I think we end up making some interesting things because of that kind of progression.
I think that's exactly right. That's the exact barometer, is like whoever cares more about a certain thing wins. And on the whole, we always line up. And then those arguments disappear, at a certain point. But there have been many times where we'll be in an editing suite and I'll be like, I'll give you $1,000 if we don't do this. That's how important. I do not like this.
And usually I'll take the $1,000.
It's a great business for Brendan. Sometimes I feel like he's doing it on purpose.
Well, the series is awesome. So thank you so much for the time. It was awesome chatting.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
Great seeing you again, Andrew.